Hello, I'm Dr. Hisham Saeed. Welcome to this second part of Lesson 1 on introducing the concept of project management. And in this part, we'll learn about project procurement and delivery. So first thing we'll learn about is procurement in general. What does procurement mean in acquiring services and products? And compare between the different phasing approaches when you're handling or you're planning a project, and specifically a construction project. You compare between the different ways that you can structure and organize a project team, and also understand the differences between compensation or ways to pay those involved in a construction project. So the word procurement here is a very fuzzy word. People use it for different meanings, but we will refer it here, we'll use it to refer to the process of acquiring a product or a service. So at our university, we have a purchasing department. So purchasing is another name for procurement. If you want to buy a computer, you go to the purchasing department because they have the list of all qualified and those who had good experience, the university had good experience with them to buy or purchase a product. Or you can go for it for services, so people like cleaning or printing. So procurement, if you're buying a product, it's usually called purchasing department. But if you're going through getting services, then it's called procurement. There are generally two ways of procuring a product or a service. The first one is competitive. So you focus more onto the value that's being delivered here. And the easy way to quantify value is the dollar amount. So you ask one to put a dollar amount for their services or product they're providing, and you select based on that. The other way is qualification based. So you think about the money, but also you think about other things like speed of delivery of stuff, quality of the material. So it's more comprehensive way of thinking about the product or the service you want to get, but it's a little harder to make a judgment which one to pick, which supplier, which service provider to pick. Transitioning now from project procurement to delivery. So project delivery is the more technical term used in construction projects, and it includes procurement. So project delivery includes procurement plus how you organize the project. So project procurement here is how you bring builders and engineers and designers, architects, suppliers of materials, how you bring these in the project. And then after you bring them in, is how you organize their work, how you organize the packages that they deliver, how it's being phased, how you organize the team itself, and how you decide on their compensation or payment. So we'll cover each one of these 3 points: how you phase the project, how you organize the team, and how you pay the team. So how you phase the project, there are 3 approaches here. First one is sequential. So sequential here is very basic phasing here. It's more very serial. So you finish all the design and then wait until everything 100% sure about it, and then you start construction. Very traditional. The other way is parallel phasing. So you think about the project as packages that you start working on in parallel, but you have to finish the design of every package before you start building it or constructing that. So you might have a package for site work, so you start designing for utilities, and once you finish that, you can actually start digging and trenching on site to lay out the utilities. And then there is excavation. So once you finish that, you can start working on excavation. You don't have to wait until the mechanical and plumbing systems to be designed to work on the excavation. There is very long lead time here. You can actually figure out a separation between the systems. So you can define the excavation depth without waiting for the exact routing of electrical or plumbing or air conditioning systems. Now, the more aggressive way is staggered processing. So, yes, you divide the project into packages, but even this package, you start more aggressive phasing here by starting construction even before design is completed. And you can see here from the sequential to parallel to staggered, there's more time savings because you're more aggressive in doing things in parallel. Now, I will leave you with this question here. So you gain here time, but what are you losing here? So I'll leave this question for you to reflect on. I will not answer it. We will have discussion in class and in the discussion page of this lesson. So project team structuring, how you structure the team. So the project is made up by team of organizations. So a contractor is a company, an architect is a company. So how you bring these companies together into a project. There are two main ways depending on how you actually integrate these. So you can have very complete separation of these entities, or you can have integration of these entities or responsibilities. So the first general approach here includes design, bid, build, and PCM, professional construction management. The other big approach here to integrate organizations, you can use design build approach. You can have a very specific case of owner builder, or you can use advanced, more new ways of delivering projects, which is called integrated project delivery and public-private partnerships. So we'll cover briefly each one of these. So design, bid, build, the BB. So it starts with the owner defining a project, and then at the beginning of the project, they start the planning process. So they can hire a consultant. Just the purpose here is to make sure the project makes sense. Thinking about alternatives. Should I start thinking in concrete or steel? How many floors it should be? So start planning the project, meaning that what are the objectives? What's my budget that I can afford, and all of that. Once you're done with the planning, you hire a designer. So you start having a contract with an architect. Architect is usually is the lead for the design team. So you hire an architect, and the architect hires the sub, including civil engineers, the consultants, and they start working on the preliminary drawings, the detailed drawings, and you have a construction drawing set. So you can use to have a bid. So you start asking contractors to bid for the project, and then you select the build team, or you select the GC, and the GC comes with the GC team of subs and suppliers. Once you do that, once you pick in the bidding the builder, you have now a construction cost established, which is the lowest cost from the bid, and then you start construction. So the owner starts with the planning with a consultant. It can be actually the architect that will continue with the design, and then after that you will have a contract with the architect, and then after the bid you will have a contract with the contractors. The owner doesn't have a contract directly with sub-consultants or subcontractors. So the owner here has two contracts, one with the builder and one with the architect or the main lead engineer. So some pros and cons here. Good things about that is very sequential, very easy. No risk here much about, oh, I forgot to add that. It's added in design. Let's make sure design works and kind of fits well together. And then you have a complete recipe for the project. You can actually now have bidding and construction. It's a very transparent process because in bidding you can actually pick only based on cost. So bidding here is a very transparent process, which is good for public projects with taxpayers' money. And then competitive pricing here, the theory behind that is once you have bidding, competition will drive the price down. We'll not go in details, but actually now research shows that everyone starts to pump up their prices in the bids because there's some uncertainties that there might be there for contractors to account for. So we'll not go into details. This is a whole a whole discussion to have, but we're having here just introductory lesson on project delivery. The bad things about this approach, DBB, is that it's very lengthy. You have to work in serials, so it takes time. It lacks the construction input. So all of this time you spend in designing, those who will actually put this design together and build it don't come until later. And when they come and start saying, "Oh, I can't build that; it's not buildable," they start raising things and asking for changes, and the change process here is painful. So the changes come not because of design does it fit, but because the design is not constructible. And then these changes create adversary relations because architect is kind of the boss here, telling the contractor and sometimes preventing payments to contractors. So it's very adversary kind of relations. And there's some potential for unethical practices, especially in bidding. So in the bid process, there might be a potential for people doing bad things like bid shopping. So you get a bid from a sub, you win the project, but then you go to another sub, say, I will give you the job if you give me a lower price, and that this price difference is in the GC pocket. So and that's really bad. You're throwing away the commitment of the sub who gave you the bid on time, so you win the project. Another thing is unbalancing bids, so we'll not go in detail of that. I recommend that you read professional articles, different opinions about unbalancing bids, but I will leave this for you to read more about it. It's a whole new topic. We'll not have the time to cover it in this class. PCM. So the next possible approach of managing project but not integrating them is project construction management. So PCM is a company. Here it shows construction manager. It seems like an individual. It can be an individual, but typically a company with a bunch of experienced construction managers who now kind of be acting as the middle person. And the owner now has 3 contracts. So they have a contract with the architect, the design team. So they start working on preliminary design, and then the owner will make a contract with a PCM or a construction manager here that will come early and start helping the architect to accelerate the design with input on how it's actually being built. So they will start putting things on track, make it faster, and that PCM will, at some point, will commit to a cost, even before doing any bidding, to bring contractors on board. With their experience, they can commit to a cost that will not, the actual cost will not exceed. They will commit to a budget that the actual cost will not exceed. And after that, you commit to a cost you can actually now bring piece by piece subcontractors on board to do the project. So you can see here generally it's a little better process than design bid build. You have early input on constructability during the design. It's easier to incorporate design changes here because that middle person is kind of having the big picture and coordination between design and construction, and it should be faster than design bid build. The bad things here is qualification-based process. So this PCM, this construction manager that will transform to a builder, to be a builder down the stream of this process, you have to pick in the beginning based on qualification. There is no one will commit to a budget that early to pick based on it. So you have to pick based on qualification. So that counters the transparency that you will have in the design bid build. There is lack of price competition because now you cannot, if you're talking about qualification, you're considering more than the cost here. You're considering the experience of that PCM company. There's some additional cost here to have to pay for the PCM, but and the promise that this PCM will save you money down the road. And some little adversary relations because now the PCM is the middle person. He's kind of a new boss, while the architects traditionally are the boss. So there's some conflict of power between the construction management company and the architect and the engineering management. So those managing the engineering. So it's a little conflict and power struggle here within the team. Now moving from the segregation of organization within the project to integrating them. So the design build. Another name for it is turnkey delivery. So the idea is the owner here, I don't want to, me as an owner, I don't want to be having 2 contracts or even 3 contracts in PCM. I just have 1 contract, go to someone, explain what I need, and then you call me back when you're done, I get the key to the facility. A little exaggeration here, but that's kind of where the turnkey comes from. So the owner here has a contract with one entity to design and build the facility. And you can see here the procurement part here, the selection of someone to come and do the project. There's no split here between a design team and a builder team. It's one team, design build team. And that saves more time, and now it's more integrated process, so you can squeeze more of that design development process and the bidding process and construction process. So in summary here, this is the differences between design bid build, PCM, and design build. Design build brings good advantages here. You have easy change process here, scope change if you want, and it will happen because design is done while construction also is being done, so there is a higher potential for change, but it's easier to do because now we're dealing with one entity managing both. There is early construction input into design, it's much faster, and there's minimal adversary relationship here. Still bad things, you're picking based on qualifications, this entity, design bid entity. There's lack of price competition, and the new thing here is there's less control from the owner on the outcome of this project. So it's like it's a turnkey, right? So you tell me what you want, I will give you the key at the end. In between, there's kind of a black box. You don't know what's happening unless the owner has good team that's following up with the design build company, making sure that the project objectives are met. So owner builder, I left it to the end because it's not common. It's very unique in some situations. So the first one is residential developers who are actually builders. So they have within the company, they have construction team that builds, and then there's development team that buys properties. You build on the properties and you start selling units. So it's very special in this case. Another special case is the U.S. Army of Corps of Engineers. So they own assets, infrastructure assets, waterways, locks, levees, and they build these assets and maintain it. So it's a more integrated owner-builder kind of example here also. So we're done with phasing the project. The next we're done with how you organize the team of this project. The third part of the project delivery is how you're going to pay these people involved in the project, compensation here. And when we talk about payment, we're talking about price or value of the contract, where we need to make a distinction here between value and cost. So cost is what the actual expense of building this project. But those who are doing that for you, they don't want to get paid only the cost, they're getting paid also a fee or markup. So now what you see as an owner is the contract value. Cost includes direct cost and indirect cost. So direct costs are those costs that are directly related to building this, concrete column. So you have the material, labor, equipment, and if you're not doing it yourself, then instead of all these three, you're subbing it out. So the sub will give you a cost for this. The indirect costs are any costs that you cannot associate directly to this specific column and this floor. So site overhead, that project manager that's walking all over the site, it's not easy to deduct his time or her time dedicated for this column, right? So site overhead is something that you incur, but you start adding it up at the end of the project. Kind of, you have a big number, you start spreading over the scope of the project. Same thing for office overhead. That CEO sitting in the office or maybe playing golf somewhere, the salary of the CEO, the salary of the accountants, those trying to market for the company, all of that need to be loaded on the cost of every project. So again, contract value equals to cost plus markup. Now, people get the value, paid the value and the value of the contract is spread over different payments. Now, how these payments are done and how they are calculated, there are two approaches here. So they can be based on a competitive approach or negotiated approach. So how you set the value and how you get paid for this value as a contractor, there are these two approaches. So competitive, you have lump sum or unit price, and both of them you can do it through a competitive bidding process, similar to kind of in line with the design bid build process, DBB. But the design bid build is how we bring people in. Competitive approach of paying them is using lump sum or fixed unit price. So lump sum is your payments are based on a big number that you agree on, and you start getting paid, and the maximum you get paid is this lump sum. That's it. But for fixed unit price, you agree or you sign the contract on fixing unit prices, not the big value of the contract. And you start measuring work quantities while you do the work, and you multiply the quantities by the work the unit price, and then you get paid for whatever amount you owe. This is a big difference here. At the beginning of the project, you have the value of the contract solid in fixed lump sum. For fixed unit prices, there is an initial value that can be changed based on the quantities that change. So why quantity change? Because you don't have a perfect set of drawings. You don't have drawings that tell you exactly how much you should excavate. Like in most roadway projects, you just excavate until you do tests and say that's good. So the quantities can be changed. But you need still drawings to tell you that you have to excavate, right? So you know in the scope that you will excavate. I know there is a drainage pipe here I have to put in place. There is a concrete scope here. So I know what scope will be done, but I don't know the exact quantities of each. So what I can commit to in fixed unit price is fixing the price of each unit, but I cannot commit you to number of units. But in fixed lump sum, the drawings should be complete that can tell you how many cubic yards of excavation exactly will be there, which is not realistic in most of the cases, and this is why changes come and it's a painful process. So any quantity change in the lump sum contracts do constitute a contract change. So contract change is a very legal term, a contractual term that will impact the project lump sum, and you have to change it. But in fixed unit prices, when change in quantities happen, it just changes this equation, right? So your payment is equal to the quantity times the unit price. Quantity change, then your payment changes. And there is no shield on that payment. So if quantities go out of control, then your price of the value of the contract will keep increasing. But it's still within reasonable amounts. So contracts will tell like 15-20% within the initial quantity estimate, your unit price should be fixed. So for example, here you commit to a lump sum 900K for this excavation, but for your fixed unit price, you commit to a $900 per each cubic yard, and then you start measuring how many cubic yards you have done for this project. Excuse me. Negotiation approach here is based on, again, the concept of value is equal to the cost plus fee. So the payment is equal to the cost plus whatever fee you set. So what happens is you have an open book. So if you do a work, it costs you that exactly, then you tell the owner, this is the cost, and then you have to pay me on top of it the fee. So now the fee is negotiation here, where the negotiation happens. So the fee can be fixed. So regardless of how much cost you incur, I will just pay you a fixed fee. So you're not losing anything, right? So I will do the job, I will get a fee, that's it. But this fee is fixed. So you get a 100K for $1 million project, or still getting 100K for $10 million project. You're now thinking about my profit and my return. Is it worth it to get 100,000 for $1 million versus 100,000 for $10 million? Of course, 100,000 for a million, it's worth it because now I can do 10 projects with these and I get more profit. So the other way is you negotiate a percentage of the cost to be your fee. So the more costs you incur, the more fee as amount you have. The owners also can impose some constraints here. So they can ask that you share profit or share savings and even losses from a number that you put on the cost. So if the project, you set this number to be 10 million and you finish the project in 9 million, so there is a savings of 1 million, then you will share this savings with the owner. So the owner can take like 50%, the contractor will take 50%. But if you exceed this 10 million limit, you did it in 11 million, then this 1 million difference or losses, you will share the losses. So that can be one way of putting constraint on that explosion of the cost, you can say. Like, there's no motivation for the contractor to save costs for the owner without these constraints. And then there's the guaranteed maximum price, similar kind of to sharing the costs, savings and loss, but now you're putting a limit on how much this contractor will be paid. So we'll not go in details of this, but at least now you know how payments are being done. You can fix it, so you have a lump sum, or you can fix the unit price, or you can say, do the work, share with me the receipts, and I'll pay you a fee. And the fee can be fixed or percentage. And you can put constraints on how much the payment at the end will be. So that's the end of this lesson, part of this lesson. So we'll learn about the what is a procurement, what is a project delivery, learn about how different approaches for phasing a project, for organizing a team in a project, and for paying this team for their work and services in a project. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in another video. Thank you.